It's Monday. It's episode 231 of Stand Up. Hello, my friends. Joining me today from the Boston Globe, Michael Cohen, and one of my all-time favorite comedian, actor, good friend, Maz Jobrani will join me. I'm Pete Dominic. Time to stand up with me right now. Hey, guys. Hope you had a good weekend. I pretty much unplugged all weekend long. It was very nice. I highly recommend it. Always a healthy choice. Unplug, get outside, and send me those pictures of nature. Email them to me. I love getting your pictures when you're outside from anywhere, from a sunset to a plant to a bug to a frog. I don't care. standupwithpete@gmail.com. And read books and long-form articles as much as you can, and stay off the social media as much as you can. I need to take my own advice. Almost died on Sunday night. Not really at all, not even close, but it was very windy, and a tree almost landed on my car, and it was very scary while I was recording the podcast Sunday night in the shed, because there was basically a tornado watch for New York City and Rockland County where I live. It was nuts. Absolutely crazy weather here. But that's what I do for you. It's a dangerous job, podcasting. I could have a tree land on the shed at any point during the broadcast. All right, now let's get serious. What is dangerous is COVID. Yeah, massive pandemic, spiking everywhere. The United States added 184,000 cases with no end in sight, and lots to talk about in terms of the latest COVID numbers. Peter Hotez tweeted, thought I would update on where we stand in Texas, COVID-19. Trigger warning. Mostly it's bad news, but there is also some good news. The good news is that for the first time, the bad news has brackets. But November to February will be rough for us. Looking really bad in Texas and pretty much all over the country. The United States surpassed 11 million coronavirus cases. It took just 6 days to go from 10 to 11 million. The president has not attended a coronavirus task force meeting in at least 5 months, according to one senior administration official, because he doesn't care. Here is Anthony Fauci on State of the Union on CNN with Jay Tapper.
Well, I think that if we get most of the country vaccinated in the second, third quarter of the year, and the vaccine continues to prove its efficacy and people adhere to those fundamental measures, I think we can start approaching the degree. It's not going to be a light switch, Jake. We're not going to turn it on and off, going from where we are to completely normal. It's going to be a gradual accrual of more normality as the weeks and the months go by, as we get well into 2021.
Mm-hmm. President Trump's administration is refusing to acknowledge reality. They're blocking the transition process with President-elect Joe Biden's team, including any transition related to fighting the pandemic. How problematic is it for the fight against the coronavirus if the NIH and your agency and other government experts are not able to begin communicating with President-elect Biden's team, which, as you know, has its own expertise in fighting pandemics?
Well, Jake, as you know, I've been through multiple transitions now, having served 6 presidents for 36 years. And it's very clear that that transition process that we go through, that time, the period of measured in several weeks to months, is really important in a smooth handing over of the information, as well as it's almost like passing a baton in a race. You don't want to stop and then give it to somebody. You want to just essentially keep going. That's what transition is. So it certainly would make things more smoothly if we could do that.
So just as a public health measure, you think it would be a good idea if your team would be able to work with the Biden-Harris transition team right now, just in terms of what's best for the public health of the American people?
Of course, Jake, that's obvious. Of course it would be better if we could start working with them.
When is the last time President Trump attended a White House coronavirus task force meeting?
It was months ago, but, when we have our task force meeting, it's run, as you know, by Vice President Pence. And the vice president then translates that to the president himself. But the last time the president was physically at a task force meeting was several months ago.
Let me just read some headlines to you about COVID. Washington is imposing sweeping restrictions. Washington State, Washington Governor Jay Inslee announced sweeping new restrictions on gatherings and business Sunday, including a ban on indoor service at restaurants and bars to combat a recent surge in COVID-19 cases in the state. Governor of North Dakota has changed tack and has now issued a mask mandate after months of resisting ordering the people of North Dakota to wear masks and limit the size of gatherings. The state's Republican governor relented in an effort to stem a coronavirus surge as among the worst in the U.S. and threatens to overwhelm the state's hospitals. That's Governor Doug Burgum in an executive order Friday night, according to the Associated Press. Michigan had their worst week ever. COVID-19 cases, deaths soared as shutdowns loom and holidays approach. Michigan marked its worst week yet in the coronavirus pandemic as 44,019 people were nearly diagnosed and 416 died. My wife told me 2 of her cousins are now COVID positive. Terrible news. They live in Michigan, I should mention. So that's just a few headlines and audio related to COVID. Not much more to say about it on today's show other than with my guests, Michael Cohen and Maz Jobrani. That is coming up, of course. But let's switch to the aftermath of the election over the weekend. There was violence, but I feel like the violence was almost exclusively only in D.C. It looked like the MAGA Proud Boys swarmed D.C. with the intention to cause violence. Was there violence anywhere else in the country that you heard or saw about? If so, let me know. But I tweeted that earlier today. I said I thought it was only in D.C. that we really saw much of the violence. I saw this meme. My wife sent this to me. Why do adult males who can't run a mile act like they're ready for civil war? Looking at you, Mule Team 6. You too, Gravy Seals. I just thought it was funny. I don't know who wrote that. My wife just sent it to me. I thought it was funny. My friend Brandy Zadrozny, who's an investigative reporter over at NBC, tweeted, I used to teach a media literacy course, and I kind of wish I still did. So Andy and Nigo's videos could be put to good use. Selective edits, stripping context, text that doesn't match visuals, emotional manipulation, obvious bias, historical untrustworthiness. The man does it all. This guy, Andy Nigo's videos, he edits them selectively. A lot of people do across the political spectrum. That's why you always have to use a lot of critical thinking when you're seeing a video where there's violence and you don't know the context and who started it, of course, who said what, who escalated it, who tried to de-escalate it, who was there, who witnessed it. And the president shared a video, as did many other people, that was highly edited, because I watched this whole 5-minute video from this Proud Boy guy, like a 50-year-old guy, raising hell in D.C. over the weekend, and he gets surrounded. He's swinging and he's yelling, "Don't want to mess with me! You don't want to mess with me!" Well, he gets swarmed by young people, mostly young black people in D.C., and one of them just comes up and clocks him right in the face. He's swinging at everybody, pushing everybody around, and finally he just gets knocked the fuck out. And, of course, the president tweeted only a selectively edited version of that, where it looked like this guy was just walking around and got punched in the face. And that is dangerous, which is why we all have to be careful what we share, be careful on social media, and use critical thinking when it comes to the context of these videos. And also, I mean, these Proud Boys or these militia cosplay losers going into big cities and bringing their rallies and their pickup trucks and their flags, their stupid flags, they're going to get their asses kicked by black people in those cities. I mean, if you're a white supremacist, if you're perceived as a white supremacist and you go into a black neighborhood, you should be looking for a fight. I mean, I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying that you should fight them. I'm not suggesting that, but I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. That's the point I'm trying to make. Seriously, it's stupid. They're going in there and stirring up trouble, and young people are not having it. And I mean, the idea that we're going to have a civil war where these redneck Proud Boy douchebags and their guns are going to come in somehow and intimidate people, black people living in cities. Bill Maher said something about this on Real Time, and I couldn't agree more. They're going to get their asses kicked. Black people in cities have guns, too. I mean, I don't know, something worth thinking about. But these guys went into Washington, D.C., and they brought all their attitudes, their pickup trucks, their flags, and a bunch of them got their ass kicked. They did some ass kicking. But that's where the violence is going to continue to lie, at these rallies, of course. So if you don't want to get the shit kicked out of you, if you don't want to get hurt, you probably shouldn't go to one of these rallies. I think it's fair to say. And by the way, innocent people always get hurt on all sides of these things. I saw a little girl look like she was with her Trump supporting mother get hurt, get like pushed into a guardrail or something. It was brutal, and it's bad. I mean, it's very bad, but it's not nearly as bad as I think a lot of people are warning. And I think that a lot of people that are getting in fights are looking for fights, but it's hard to know, very hard to know. But that's the way I'm looking at this right now. How about you? Would love to hear from you on that. Email me, standupwithpete@gmail.com. All right, so Barack Obama is out with his 40th book, I think, and he's got a new book out. He was on 60 Minutes with Scott Pelley, who's got more gravitas than any human being alive. And here is Barack Obama talking, former President Obama talking with Scott Pelley on 60 Minutes last night.
What is your advice in this moment for President Trump?
Well, a president is a public servant. They are temporary occupants of the office by design. And when your time is up, then it is your job to put the country first and think beyond your own ego and your own interests and your own disappointments. My advice to President Trump is if you want, at this late stage in the game, to be remembered as somebody who put country first, it's time for you to do the same thing.
In your view, it is time for him to concede?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I think it was time for him to concede probably the day after the election, or at the latest 2 days after the election. When you look at the numbers objectively, Joe Biden will have won handily. There is no scenario in which any of those states would turn the other way, and certainly not enough to reverse the outcome of the election.
Barack Obama on 60 Minutes. He called Donald Trump at like 3 a.m. The night after Trump beat Clinton in 2016, of course. I always love how President Obama talks about Donald Trump like he's a decent guy. Well, he's a public servant. Being a president, public servant. He has no idea what the job of president is, Trump that is, and has no interest really in doing the job, obviously. I think the guy's just hiding in his bedroom in the White House with the shades drawn, watching cable TV, ranting on Twitter. And I think he's pretty soon he's just going to quit. He's just going to go to Florida and punch out completely and then run a shadow presidency until he tries to run again, which will be too late because he'll be too old and even crazier. That's my prediction. But what do I know? Mark Levin, who is one of the most influential assholes on the right, did not like what Barack Obama had to say on 60 Minutes. And he went on his show on Fox News and said this.
I watched this clip of Barack Obama on 60 Minutes where he's attacking the President of the United States, and he believes these challenges that are taking place in the states are undermining democracy.
Yeah.
He's put out an 800-page book. You'd think he's Winston Churchill. I think this is his third autobiography. Well, I want to say something to President Obama, the other so-called iconic figures in our republic, Republican and Democrat. Don't you damn lecture us. For 4 damn years, the FBI was involved in trying to undermine this president. The intelligence services trying to undermine this president.
Oh, Mark Levin is upset. Somebody call the wambulance. Oh, boy. All right. Well, thought I'd play those two clips. President Obama on 60 Minutes. Mark Levin reacting to him on 60 Minutes on Fox News. But then speaking of Fox News is definitely changing. A lot of the reporters there are done carrying water for Donald Trump. It's way too late, yet still good to see. Fox News' Eric Shawn devoted a segment on Sunday afternoon debunking a number of claims made by President Trump and his allies about the, quote, rigged election. Listen to this excellent 2 minutes on Fox News with Eric Shawn.
The election facts as we know them right now. Rigged election? Well, your own government, election officials across the country, and voting experts say it's not true. Baseless claims that are inflammatory, designed to undermine your faith in American democracy. Here's the chairman of the federal agency, the U.S. Election Assistance Commission, Ben Hovland.
The
reality is this was the most secure election we've ever had, and it was one of the most well-run elections we've ever had. And this is about facts. This is about truth. This is about respecting our democracy, respecting our elections, and focusing on what has really occurred. The American people made their voice heard. And when we spread conspiracy theories, when we don't back that up with facts, it has an impact.
Now, as for the president's claim that Republican observers were blocked from watching hundreds of thousands of votes being counted in Democratic-leaning Philadelphia, well, in case you missed it, here's the top Republican election official in Philadelphia, Philadelphia City Commissioner Al Schmidt, on that with me on Thursday.
The president says observers were not allowed in the counting rooms. Is that true?
That's totally untrue.
The president says, quote, bad things happened that our observers were not allowed to see. Is that true?
Absolutely not.
Have you seen any evidence of voter fraud here?
I have not.
And how about the allegations about Dominion voting systems, that they supposedly changed Trump votes to Biden votes? Well, here's part of the company's answer to that allegation. Quote, vote deletion, switching assertions are completely false. Dominion is a nonpartisan U.S. company. Dominion has no ownership relationships with the Pelosi family, Feinstein family, Clinton Global Initiative, Smartmatic, Skytho, or any ties to Venezuela. Dominion works with all U.S. political parties. You know, prosecutors say that any voter or election fraud allegation will be thoroughly investigated. And if the fix were in, if there was wrongdoing, we will know about it. But election officials across the country insist, as of today, there is no evidence of any widespread fraud affecting the outcome of the presidential election, that our precious democracy was not tampered with, and that such baseless and false claims are an insult to the thousands of election officials and workers across the country who we have seen dedicating themselves 24/7 to ensure a fair and free election for all of us.
I know if I hadn't told you that it was on Fox News, you wouldn't believe it, but that was a thorough debunking of several of the allegations of President Trump's lawyers and his supporters about fraud, which he just debunked. Eric Shawn on Fox News. Well done, sir. And I really liked what Max Brooks had to say on Real Time. I've always been a fan of his. He's the son of Mel Brooks and actress Anne Bancroft, and he is also a senior fellow at the Modern War Institute at West Point. So he's a creative guy, a Hollywood guy, and also a national security expert guy. And they were having a conversation about how we can get along and how we can reach out to the other side. And I thought Max Brooks made some really good points on Real Time, and I want to share a little bit of that with you right now.
You know, that is how you defeat an insurgency. You do not do it with street violence, because every insurgent you kill, you make another 100. And this is exactly what my dad did in World War II. He hunted what was called werewolves, which were Nazis when the Reich fell, went into the hills, vowed to fight the Allies for 100 years. And you know how we defeated that insurgency? We rebuilt Germany.
Right.
Those guys came back out of the hills.
Right. I agree.
And they said, hey, you, Fritz, I got a job for you. And if we want to diffuse this homegrown insurgency,
I agree.
We have to govern well. In fact, if you look at the U.S. military's counterinsurgency manual, peel away the tactical layers, it's just a handbook for good government.
But here's the problem.
So wait, we need a Marshall Plan for West Virginia? Is that
yes?
Okay,
We need a
let's
Marshall.
do it.
Well, no, but because this is what we've been talking about ever since I've been on the show. Globalization has ripped half the heart out of this country, and automation is going to rip half the other heart out. And if we don't get a handle on this, if we don't start to govern by what affects the most Americans, then we will lose again in 4 years.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's true.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't know what you think, but governing well, giving people an opportunity for a job, for education, for healthcare, that's governing well, I mean, to say the least. But one thing I've always noticed, and I wrote something about this for the Daily Beast years ago, is on the right, what you have is the radio assholes screaming and demanding that Republicans in Congress do this or do that. And the Republicans in Congress saying that's not a thing that we can do. I remember that happening with Mark Levin and Ron Johnson on the radio, which is what I wrote an article about. And I just saw Devin Nunes, who I normally would never feel bad for, and of course I still don't. But he was on with Lou Dobbs. Lou Dobbs basically screaming at him, do something, do something. There's nothing they can do. They don't know how to govern. Governing is hard, but you've got to be able to figure out how to create opportunities for people. And that's going to be that's going to be very difficult, what with the inability to get legislation passed and, more importantly, to get money to people during this horrific downturn and spike, I should say, that we're about to have, or that we're having right now on COVID. You've got to get money to people right now. All right, so let me play you one kind of fun thing. Jim Gaffigan on CBS Sunday Morning talking about masks. Here he is.
I'd like to talk to you about masks. Don't worry, I'm not going to tell you to wear a mask. At this point, we all know why we're wearing these things. If you leave your house right now and encounter someone, they'll likely look like me. I mean, they'll be wearing a mask. Not everyone's as good looking as me. Whenever I see someone with a mask on, they look perfectly normal. They look like a mask pro. My personal experience with masks has not been so smooth. My first obstacle is that, well, most adult masks are too small for my head. You see, I have a big head, both physically and metaphorically. You could actually store another head inside of my head. Like if anyone's missing their head, it might be in here. I've known I've had a large head since middle school, when my football coach announced to the entire team that he had to go to the nearby high school to get a helmet that fit my huge head. Don't worry, those kids were super nice. I don't find wearing a mask particularly comfortable, but that hasn't stopped me from forgetting I'm wearing a mask. On more than one occasion, I've attempted to eat French fries with my mask on. Luckily, I always dip my fries in ketchup, so there's no boost to the ego quite like walking around the world with stains from food on your mask. Is that blood on your mask? No, 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 no. It's ketchup. Be safe, everyone.
Gaffigan. All right, everybody. If you aren't already a paid subscriber, I would love to have you sign up right now. Several new people over the weekend and last week. I'll give shout outs at some point during the week, all the new subscribers. You'll be able to join us on Zoom in our Hangouts as well as on the Discord platform anytime. So while this podcast is free, it's not cheap. I need your support. Help me get to 3,000 subscribers. We're almost to 800. Go now, patreon.com/PeteDominic, and sign up for as little as $5. You can always edit your pledge up, or you can get a subscription for a gift for a loved one, a friend, somebody who wants to learn more, get more enlightened, and be a part of our community that we have grown to support each other and be connected with each other all the time. It's awesome. I love it. I love you guys. I love doing the show. And here now, coming up, by the way, I just got to say, just a fantastic conversation with comedian Maz Jobrani. Really thoughtful, insightful, funny, real, honest, vulnerable. And I loved it. So I'm looking forward to sharing that with you. But first, I reached out last night to Boston Globe columnist Michael Cohen, who is on Twitter at SpeechBoy71. He's also got a great newsletter that comes out every Thursday, Truth and Consequences. He's written several books that you should get. And I always love talking with Michael Cohen about the latest in politics and more. Here's our conversation right now. All right, Michael Cohen now joins me. Very happy to have him joining me to talk about his most recent columns, his reactions to the election, and where we go from here. Michael, thank you as always for coming on the show.
It's my pleasure to be here, always.
Your backdrop is barbecue, beer, and freedom guy on Zoom, and I feel like that's the best thing. I really feel like it's very emblematic of a lot of what happened and a lot of Trump supporters.
See if I can make sure I get it in there. Yeah, there you go. Absolutely. I think Tommy Tuberville didn't know the three branches of the government, and clearly those are the three: barbecue, beer, and freedom.
Yeah, you were also going after the new senator from Alabama on Twitter as well. He's not the sharpest knife in the drawer, apparently. He's a real dumb guy, huh? He doesn't know how government works.
a box of rocks think he's an idiot. That's how dumb he is. I mean, he is not a smart man at all. Yeah. Actually, it's funny. I read that interview with him that incredible quote came from, where he didn't know the three branches of the federal government.
Yeah.
And, you know, he doesn't know a lot, but what he does know is all through the prism of football. So everything he understands about government is really, or about just life, is through like an analogy to football. That's how he basically talks. I mean, this is like the guy in Veep. Remember the baseball manager runs for president in Veep? He's like that guy. Everything is like about football to him, and he just had no idea what's going on.
You watch Ted Lasso?
I don't watch Ted Lasso.
Oh, you got to watch Ted Lasso. You got to watch Ted Lasso. Well, what do you think happened in Alabama, and what do you think happened, with the Democratic Party in general? I mean, everybody wants to put each election in a box and wants to make a generalization about what happened, but I feel like the progressive movement, the Democratic Party, is very diverse, and some states are going this way, some states are going that way, and it's hard to generalize. But what do you make of that guy winning in Alabama, being a Democrat, Doug Jones, much less any of the other Democratic districts that they won or lost?
I think in Alabama, you could nominate an inanimate carbon rod. As long as there's an R next to its name, that rod would win an election in Alabama. That's my sense of it. That we are so polarized right now that it doesn't matter, how dumb the politician is or how little they know about government. As long as they're a Republican, that's good. And frankly, people who support Trump clearly don't value, intelligence in their politicians. So I don't know that it's really a shocker that Alabama, which is one of the red states in the country, would choose Senator Tuberville to represent them in Washington. By the way, Senator Tuberville will never not be a funny thing to say.
Yes, no, that's good. I like it.
Yeah.
One of your most recent pieces at the Boston Globe talks about the framing of this country, and that you say we're center left. A lot of people after the election say that we're center right because that's how Trump won or got as many votes as he did, but didn't win. A lot of Republicans, they say, split the vote. How do you have a conversation about the Overton window, the framing of America, and how do you make the case that it's, quote, center left?
I mean, Democrats have won 7 of the last 8 presidential elections by the popular vote. That's never happened before in American history. Every election, overwhelmingly, the country chooses Democrats. But because we have a political system that an electoral college that is geared to Republicans, these elections are close. And because we have a political system that favors Republicans by, the way the Senate is set up with 2 senators for every state, a place like Wyoming or Utah or Montana that have, small populations get as much representation in the Senate as New York and California, and the largest states in the country. So it's a center left country, but the institutions favor Republicans and favor center right, and that's why we have center left elections, presidential elections, but a center right government.
Is that the kind of summary that you come away just based on the popular vote? I mean, I like to look at issue by issue and see where people are, although now I'm suspicious of all polling questions in general. But it would seem on issues from healthcare to education to guns and foreign policy and so on, you could kind of frame where we are based on polling and how the American people feel on that. Is that another way to do it?
If you looked at issues, overwhelmingly, Americans prefer, more liberal positions on most policy issues, on guns, on abortion, on taxes, even on the, government spending for the most part, on Social Security and Medicare. But, the people care most about guns, people who are pro-gun, and they dominate in places like red state America. Right. That's why they end up doing, Republicans do better. I mean, liberals live in the wrong places. I hate to say it, but it's kind of a truth. And, look, I get it's hard to sort of judge our politics by the popular vote because that's not how we run elections in this country. But it is a worthwhile way to look at it. I mean, Biden is winning right now by, I think, around 5.6 million votes. He'll probably win by in excess of 6 million, if not more, votes. That's a pretty significant victory. We haven't seen a victory that large, I believe, since 1992, maybe, or maybe 88. So it's a pretty big victory. And no, probably biggest since 96. But it's a big one. It's a big one. It's certainly bigger than anything we've seen in recent years. So I think that we should, that means something. In a lot of ways, I think this election was a repudiation of Trump, although not a repudiation of the Republican Party.
Why did he win? How did Joe Biden win? That's another column that you have. What was his pathway? Do we have the data to really tell?
We have enough data, I think, to draw the conclusion that white people saved Joe Biden.
White people?
White people.
I thought black people saved Joe Biden in every city in Philadelphia, in Milwaukee, in Detroit.
Oh, yeah. No. Don't get me wrong. Black people voted in big numbers for Biden. But Biden did better, generally worse or the same as Hillary Clinton did in 2016. So just getting the black turnout that he got would not have been enough. He needed to cut into Trump's advantage among white voters, and he did. He did with white suburban voters. He did with white working class voters, just enough in places like Michigan and Wisconsin to win. And I think at the end of the day, it was a coalition of black and Hispanic voters, although, again, lower margins than we've seen in about 16 years for Democrats among both groups, white liberals, white suburbanites, and, a smattering of white working class Americans. That's basically how we won.
On what issue? I mean, how did he make those gains? Do you think there was a clear
backlash to Trump, a referendum on Trump?
Yeah.
I don't think any issue mattered more than Trump.
Right.
This was a referendum on Trump, and it was always going to be that way. Had it been a referendum on Biden, I think Trump could have won, but Trump would never allow for that, really, because I think it has to be about him. And so I think at the end of the day, people didn't like Donald Trump, and that's why he lost.
He hasn't admitted that he's lost. He probably never will.
He never will.
What damage does that do to our society? I was going to say the electorate. I was going to say democracy. I was going to say
where do I
media.
Answer that question? I mean, Jesus Christ, right? It's like,
well, I've been hearing some people say it doesn't matter if he concedes or not. I'm like, no, it's everything. What does the fact that Donald Trump has not conceded and will never concede, what does that mean for the electorate, for democracy, for society, culture, and media? Doesn't it matter that he admits?
It's a disaster. It's a disaster. It means that his supporters will never view Joe Biden as legitimate president. That's what it means. And it also means that we have not heard the last of Donald Trump, because I think this is setting the stage for a return to politics in 2024. That'll be my guess.
Won't he be like 80?
He would be, I believe, Joe Biden's age, actually.
Joe Biden's age now?
Yeah.
I mean, I just can't imagine him having it. But that's the idea, is to not admit defeat so that he can continue to campaign and have a campaign to raise money and continue to lead and basically be a shadow president.
He can't ever admit defeat.
Right.
It's not in his DNA to admit defeat. So he'll never admit defeat. He'll never admit that he lost. And I think he'll use this sort of grievance politics to run again in 4 years.
Where do we go from here? I mean, what does a Joe Biden presidency look like as of now, without even being able to transition, with COVID absolutely spiking and with most likely not an advantage in the Senate? So only control of the executive branch.
Well, I think the one thing that Biden is going for him is that, if this Pfizer vaccine is real, and if it's possible to begin vaccinating people in a few months, and potentially more of the country by the spring, then that is going to benefit Biden, and it's going to improve the economy. It's going to get people back to work, people back to school. I think that is something that actually will be a net positive for Biden. I think, where it's going to be a problem is that he's not going to be able to deliver a lot of what he promised during the campaign, which is not his fault. But without a Democratic Senate, it's going to be very, very hard to get anything done with Mitch McConnell. Now, I don't know that McConnell will block everything that Biden tries to do, but certainly the big ticket items, like healthcare and climate change, I can't imagine that you're going to see much in the way of progress from Mitch McConnell. Why should he?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the incentive as to what it would be, but
There There is no incentive.
Well, saving lives, creating jobs. I know.
Pete, you're adorable. You really are. You're adorable. That's a nice thought.
Are they going to be able to pass any money through this lame duck session to get to the American people while we shut shit down everywhere?
I can't imagine.
Really? You don't think that there's any way that they'll approve of any continuing?
McConnell has said he doesn't want to do it, and I don't know what. And frankly, I don't see what the incentive is for Republicans. All these guys running for president in 2024, they don't want to be, having voted for some big spending bill that they used against them in a Republican primary.
Right.
So, from that perspective, I just think there's not going to be a lot of support in the caucus to do that. Now, the one thing I will say is that there's always a possibility that, let's say that Democrats win one of the Georgia seats, which I think is a possibility. It's 51-49 in the Senate. Then you could possibly see a situation in which, Susan Collins and Mitt Romney and Murkowski's, that they create a sort of centrist bloc, maybe get Joe Manchin to join them and try to push some legislation through. That's a possibility. I mean, again, it would depend on McConnell allowing it to come to the floor. But I think on things like Supreme Court nominations, if that comes up, or executive branch nominations, you might see those three, play ball. But I think on the big ticket stuff, it's just really hard to see McConnell allowing it to come to a vote in the Senate. Anything that's going to be positive for Biden, I think he's going to want to fight tooth and nail.
What do you think about where we're at in Georgia with this runoff? Do you think it's possible that the Democrats could win both of those seats? And how big of a deal is Stacey Abrams and what she got done in Georgia overall?
I mean, anything is possible, right? But I wouldn't be that confident about our Democrats that's going to happen. Just to be honest about it, I don't. The history of these elections is the party that wins the presidency usually fares poorly in the runoff. That's usually been the case. And this is a turnout election. And I kind of tend to think that the Loeffler-Perdue line that a vote for Democrats means a vote for socialism is probably more powerful, unfortunately, than the Democratic line, which should be vote for Democrats to save the planet Earth from extinction.
Yeah.
Right. And billions of lives of your fellow citizens. Yeah. That, unfortunately, I think is not a very persuasive argument in Georgia. Or anywhere from that, except out of blue states. That's my being very cynical, but honest. I don't know that it's going to make much of a difference. But we'll see. I mean, I could be wrong. I mean, the polling seems to suggest that Warnock polls a little better than Ossoff. Makes some sense because Loeffler is really a terrible candidate, and Warnock can I think has some advantage in that he's going to get a lot of support from black voters in Georgia, and there's a lot of black voters in Georgia. Anything can happen. We'll see. But I think the Republicans have the advantage as of now.
What do you think of what happened this weekend? I feel like there was a lot of violence in D.C. and almost exclusively in D.C. because there was a big Trump support rally, and so Trump supporters from wherever came to D.C., which is a very liberal place, very black place, and you saw a lot of videos with I saw a couple videos of black people kicking the shit out of white people, basically, to water it down. And it's not surprising, but my reaction to what happened this weekend was, well, and I keep playing it down, was simply that there's not going to be a lot of violence. We're not headed into a civil war. I just don't see that. We're going to see violence at rallies. There's going to be police violence at rallies. There's going to be violence from opposing interests, I guess, at rallies. But you're not seeing, a civil war in every community in the country and people falling down on different sides and taking up arms. And these militias they're dangerous and we should keep our eyes on them. Obviously, they're domestic terrorists, but they're not as organized and as, I think, motivated as some people give them credit for. How do you see the violence and what we've seen so far?
I actually tend to agree with you. I think you're probably right about that. I tend to think these things get overstated. Social media amplifies them. I think that we, make more out of it than we should. I think most Americans are not interested in violence. I think most Americans, probably want to move on from the election for the most. I mean, there are obviously exceptions, but I think I tend to think that the fears of violence have been overstated, just like the fears that the election would be stolen, I think were vastly overstated. And I wrote that a few times, and I think we've seen that Republicans have gone along to some extent with Trump's, mishegas, but they really haven't endorsed it. It's more as though they are afraid to cross Trump, but I don't feel like they're really itching to proactively try to steal the election on his behalf. And certainly judges haven't been willing to do it. So I feel, I think a lot of them, as they've been for the past 4 years, are craven, opportunistic, and cowardly, and that they are just sort of waiting for Trump to acknowledge defeat and recognize it, which, of course, as you and I know, will never happen. But at some point, he'll seem less important as an individual,
right?
And less important as a political figure.
I hope so.
Even though he's president.
How much of a difference does it make that the new president is in charge of appointing cabinet secretaries and heads of agencies, and the fact that the Department of Justice will be run by a completely different attorney general, and EPA will have an environmentalist in charge of the EPA? How much of a difference? How do you articulate?
I think DOJ, it's huge. Bill Barr was running, a DOJ as a private law firm for the president.
Yeah.
And I think abusing the rule of law. So having him out, by the way, I would guess it's going to be Doug Jones will be Attorney General.
Oh, really? Huh.
Him or maybe Sally Yates could be what's her name? Vanita Gupta. I'm sort of thinking it might be Doug Jones. But I don't think it's going to have that's going to have a huge impact. EPA has an impact too, but again, one of the problems you have here is that it's really hard to undo some of the rules that Trump's put into place. There's a whole rulemaking process, there's a legal process. These things take time. And I worry about, the Supreme Court, how they're going to weigh in on some of these things.
Right.
I do think it matters. You can use agencies in a way that's positive, but you do need legislation. It's going to be hard to get that. That's, I think, part of the issue.
What are your thoughts on where we're at right now with COVID? I see that you're arguing with some New York City politicians, a councilman on Twitter. Your kids are in public school. How easy is it to look at what's been done or not been done and say, man, you're getting this wrong?
Well, I got into a fight with this guy, Joe Borelli, who is the city councilman for Staten Island, whose constituency on the South Shore of Staten Island has the highest positivity rates in the entire city.
Wow.
And this is the same guy who went out when the city said, Mayor de Blasio said, we're going to, no gatherings more than 10 people. He goes on Twitter and says, I'm going to have 12 people by Thanksgiving. I don't care what he says about it. And then he writes an op-ed for the Daily News, basically boasting how he's going to break the law. Quite exemplary setting for his constituents, who, by the way, are screwing it up for the rest of us. Because the positivity rate is so high in the city, they're going to close city schools. And it's because of Staten Island for the most part.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Two boroughs are above 3%, which is the line that goes above 3%. The whole city, the schools shut down. The Bronx above 3%. Staten Island's above 3%. Brooklyn, Manhattan, below Queens, like just below 3, but it's a little bit. It's higher than Brooklyn and Queens and Manhattan. But for the most part, Staten Island is bringing up the numbers. And this guy is setting the worst example. And I'm just tired of it.
Yeah.
What the hell, man? You're screwing up for the rest of us. I know you don't want to wear a mask. I know you don't, but tough shit. I want my kids to go to school, and that's more important than you having 12 people at your Thanksgiving dinner. It really is. I canceled my Thanksgiving dinner with my mom.
Yep.
She can't join me and my kids. That's just, the way it has to be. I don't like it, but it's the way it has to be. It's for her protection. It's for my protection, for my kids' protection.
What's that guy saying in his defense? He's just in denial about it all?
Just a bunch of... he goes after Brad Lander, who's a member of the city council, who had some event with more than 10 people. And I said, fine, criticize Brad Lander. Now you do the right thing and tell your constituents to wear masks. His constituents are people who voted for Trump.
There's been some pretty boneheaded, unforced errors on the part of Democrats. You saw Gavin Newsom went to a gathering in California, the governor of California,
with this ridiculous thing they were going to have.
This new member dinner in Congress, right? Did they cancel that?
I don't know if they canceled it. They certainly should have.
Yeah, it's pretty.
It's just incredibly. What are you doing?
Yeah,
all of us have to change our plans around You think you're special? You think you're not? You don't think you have to play by the rules like the rest of us do? Like, set an example. I give Biden, by the way, a lot of credit for this, and I said this for a long time. Whatever you think about Biden, he has set the right example for the country by wearing a mask, socially distancing, not doing things that are even remotely, violate the spirit or the letter or the spirit of the social distancing rules that we have. And that's the example that needs to be set by politicians. It really does.
Such a relief to know that he's going to be in charge and he's going to have be using scientists and trusting scientists on not only on COVID.
Saying the right thing about this, saying the right thing and doing the right thing. I mean, God, we have needed that for 9 months. We haven't had it.
Were you ever worried on election night or in the days after?
So there was a moment about 10:15, 10:30, where I thought I was going to throw up. There was a moment, and a friend of mine texted me, is like, "What's going to happen here?" And I was like, "No comment," because because Florida didn't go well.
Yeah,
and I got a little bit concerned because it wasn't looking good in Ohio, it wasn't looking good in Wisconsin or North Carolina, and I got worried. But I think it was around midnight, I started to feel a little better.
Yeah.
And then it was like 5 a.m. when Milwaukee, this happened, by the way, last time, 2018, this happened. It was looking bad for Democrats. And then Milwaukee came in and basically Scott Walker lost in Wisconsin. And then it was like the rest of the night was like a good night for Democrats.
Right.
Same thing happened this time. Milwaukee comes in at 5 a.m. Biden wins the state. It becomes pretty clear at that point that Biden's going to win because Pennsylvania and Michigan, it looks pretty good. And so I sort of knew then it was kind of over. I think it was just kind of waiting for the
right. Wow.
To catch up to it.
Yeah, there were a few moments, that's for sure, that were.
How did you feel?
I was in. I had like 75 listeners that I was hanging out with on Zoom, and we were all freaking out. I've been saying there wasn't an adult in the room. It was not one. We were all pretty much losing it. Even though we have this one woman named Jackie who's a data analyst, and she was like, "No, everything looks all right. I mean, it's pretty much what was predicted." And so I guess she was the adult in the room. But most of us, because it's just such an interesting psychology about abuse. We felt so abused and so defeated that we thought, well, it could happen again. A lot of people protected themselves by making themselves believe that it was going to happen again. My wife.
No, I think that's right. I think that we sort of condition ourselves to thinking like this could happen again and Trump could win again. And Florida, as usual, makes everything worse. And I think that it was this moment when, Florida looked like it was. I thought Florida would be close. I thought Biden might win Florida. I didn't make a prediction. If I made a prediction, I would have predicted that Bush. I keep saying Bush. That Trump would have won. But still, you didn't expect it to be a 3-point win for Trump. That was surprising in Florida. So when that happens, you think, well, maybe there's just this missing Trump vote that we didn't know was out there. And there was, by the way. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say my prediction now is that Trump is gonna leave early. He's like in a week, he's out of here.
I think it's possible. I think
he's just gonna bunch out.
Man, do you think he resigns and then Pence pardons him? That's the big question.
I don't think he's just going to resign. I think he's just going to go to Florida, to Mar-a-Lago, and just not do anything and just tweet until January 20th, and then he's going to...
How's that different than right now?
What's that?
How's that different than right now?
No, I mean, but he's still in the White House.
I guess that's the one difference, but he's not doing his job right now.
No, but him being in the White House and being in a kind of traditional role makes, sense. He's still the president. But yeah, I just think he can't face the American public and people. He can't do it. Only his own at his own rallies. He's going to go on tour and do tons of rallies and sell tons of books.
Of course he will. He needs the validation.
Yeah.
He needs the voters to tell him how great he is.
It's going to be awesome.
He's a very sad, broken man, and he needs constant validation, and that's why he's going to keep running for president.
So now it's time to reach out to the other side, Michael. Have you made an effort to reach out to Trump supporters yet?
You mean for the Trump voters to reach out to Democrats?
No, we have to reach out to them so that they don't become insurgents. We don't want to just take away their guns and make them, former Baathists.
I think it actually is important for people to understand, what Trump voters think, what they say. As a journalist, I think it's important, but it has become a little too important in our national politics. And frankly, when you talk to Trump voters, the one thing you kind of get is they don't understand Biden voters. They don't understand Clinton voters. They don't understand Biden voters. They don't care. They don't want to. They're not interested. They view people who support Democrats as somehow illegitimate.
Yeah.
And there's not a great effort to make them understand. And that's a problem, by the way. That's a problem. They see, I think, when you talk to these folks, I mean, they really do see Democrats as being somehow, un-American or
pedophiles.
Well, yeah, that too.
It's even worse.
But less legitimate, not legitimate as sort of political actors.
Yeah. That's where we've gotten a huge percentage of Americans. I don't know how we go back, but we'll keep talking about it. All right, bud. Thank you very much. I really appreciate your time as always. Great to talk to you, and of course, always to read you at the Boston Globe. Follow him on Twitter. Michael Cohen, everybody. Thank you, sir. My pleasure. Always good to be here. All right, there goes Michael Cohen of the Boston Globe. Follow him right now on Twitter at SpeechBoy71. Okay, my second guest, I'm so excited to welcome to the podcast for the first time. He's an old friend of mine from our comedy days. He also has 2 TED Talks. He's a regular panelist on NPR's Wait, Don't Tell Me. He's a founding member of the Axis of Evil comedy tour. He wrote an LA Times best-selling book, I'm Not a Terrorist, but I played one on TV. He executive produced a documentary called Everything Must Change about his sister's battle with breast cancer. He's also starred in a number of his own stand-up comedy specials, including most recently Immigrant, which you can watch on Netflix. Also 3 additional solo specials. He's one of the funniest, most thoughtful, brilliant guys I know. He's starred in a whole bunch of TV shows as an actor as well. He moved here with his family from Iran, I think when he was the age 8, and he is just a great, great guy who I've come to know and love and haven't talked to in a long time. But we caught up on this episode, or in this conversation, and it was great to talk to him about life, about work, about being a man, a father, a husband. We got a lot done, and I'm really proud of this, and I think it's going to help a lot of you to hear our conversation. Right now, here he is on Twitter at Maz Jobrani. His website is Maz Jobrani. You can find it all, of course, in the show notes. My conversation with my own friend, Maz Jobrani. I love you. I've missed you. Thank you for joining me.
Right back at you, man. I feel like you and I were like 2 peas in a pod, because whenever we get together, we're very similarly minded. We have the same hairstyle. And I had a beard just like yours until a couple days ago. I shaved it. And that's when you have no hair, your only option is to play with the facial hair.
Right.
So I'll go goatee, then I'll shave, then I'll grow out the beard.
Have you ever
kind of gray?
You've done no coloring, right?
I've done the coloring. Have you done the coloring?
I won't do it. I feel like it's beneath me. I feel like it's wrong.
I thought the same thing until I did it. And part of what I did was, and this is what you do, you have fun with it. You go on like an Instagram live, or you do something like you do a live podcast, whatever it is, you show people as you do it.
Oh,
and you have fun. And you're like, holy shit, I can't believe I'm doing this. Oh my God, it's actually working.
Oh, that's a way to do it publicly. When you started explaining this away, I was like, there's no way he's going to convince me that this is, wait a second, that's a fun idea.
It is. And in all honesty, like you do the hair for men or whatever it's called, and it lasts like a week or two. It's fun for a little while. You look at it, you're like, oh, that's kind of cool. And you realize like, okay, if I had to play early 40s father or whatever, because I'm 48. So if I had to play a little younger, I kind of could. If they colored this shit, it could work. So, because let's face it, we're not like once your eyes get all droopy, like remember Charlie Rose just looked exhausted all the time? Then you're done. You can't do anything about that.
Well, I just, dude, I don't know if you've ever seen my dad. He's a little bit in my world. He's been pretty, I include him in a lot of shit, but I'm the spitting image of my father. Like, it's ridiculous. And so growing up, he dyed his beard once. And my dad's a very proud guy, does not like to be made fun of. He's funny as hell. He'll make fun of you, but don't give back to him. One of those guys, love him, but don't give him. So he dyed his beard, and my brother and I made fun of him so hard, so consistently for so many days, you could see him kind of be like, all right, this is a mistake. I can't even believe I'm being abused like this. Like, to watch him be humiliated because he made that choice, this proud man. So I was like, I don't think I could do that, because I probably would be, I feel the same way. It just seems too phony. But my dad also wore a hairpiece, though, to be fair.
Well, listen, it all goes to your childhood, right? You remember shit subconsciously, whatever. You're like, I don't want to do this. But that said, listen, I am also of the mind, like you know how comedians and actors, we make our own production companies and we give it a name. The name of my production company is Perfect Nose Productions.
Yeah.
And the reason it's Perfect Nose Productions was I'm totally against, like, you know, operation. Like, I basically say whatever God gave you is perfect.
Yeah.
So it was based off of my grandfather had kind of a lumpy nose. My dad had a lumpy nose.
Yeah.
I was like, just be
Sure.
you. That said, the dyeing of the beard, I was like, let's just try it. And it was kind of fun. Like I said, for us with limited facial options, that's what I've done.
Yeah, I like it. I might take your idea, but a quick question on your nose. Now, it clearly affects your vision.
Well, you know what? There's been times when there have been times. I mean, can you
see past it, like to the left? Do you have vision that's split? Is your vision split? Because if someone comes up on your left or your right, frankly, are you startled?
Let's put it this way. I don't need sunglasses because my nose serves as that. So I'm okay.
It casts shade.
Yes,
it's awesome.
Like when there's when the eclipse happens and they say don't look at the sun, all that. Like, I'm always
not a problem.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
I look right at the sun. I look right at the sun, and it's perfect. This nose was made for that.
Well, you know, it's funny because I learned that my wife grew up in Michigan. A lot of her friends were Chaldean, Iraqi Catholic. Shorthand, they would call them Arab because they were Arab. Arab Americans, though, a huge community in Michigan, obviously Dearborn and surrounding areas, Detroit. So she was like basically adopted by the next door neighbor, Iraqi Catholic Chaldean Arab family. They were more of a family to her than her own Italian family. It's such a American cultural thing. Maybe it's in foreign countries as well. But for those that have money to get a nose job, it's obviously true in the Jewish community as well. And it's a weird thing to have that be like she was telling me that like they all did it. Like all the sisters in this family did it. And I was like, holy shit, that's like a rite of passage for Americans of wealth to be able to do. And at least in that culture. And I might have said something deeply offensive to the Iraqi Chaldean community, but that's what I heard. They get a lot of nose jobs.
Dude, in Iran, it's huge too. In Iran, it's like women would get in to put a little Band-Aid there to indicate I got it. I think Iran is known to be one of the places with the most plastic surgery. Iran, Lebanon, they stopped even caring about it. They're like, we're just going to do it. We're going to fix the nose. I've always been a fan of the original noses.
Yeah.
But they just go for it. And then for me, when they do it, and especially if like they got that weird, like that little weird thing, I'm like, that's just weird to me. You know, I don't know. But color your beard, see how it feels. Do it on Instagram Live.
Yeah, no, I think that's a hilarious and fun idea. Can you explain the differences between Iraq and Iran culturally? Because if you know a little bit, you know, Iran is not Arab, they're Persian, and there's a rich history there. And if you know Iraq's not really as impressive of a country because it's a new country. And it was kind of put together by somebody else, like the British in like 1920. And so Iran has like a rich culture and history, and it's Persian. Iraq is made up of different Arab sects and some like. But I feel like, you know, if you don't know a little bit, you lump them all together. But Iran and Iraq are very different.
Yeah, I think if you look back into the early 1900s, I think there was the Persian Empire and the Ottoman Empire, and they kind of owned all those areas.
Yeah, I want to look into that.
Like you said, Iran, before Islam came to Iran in, I think, the 1500s. I'm not sure exactly when it came, but before it came, Iran had a religion that's called Zoroastrianism.
Right.
And like Freddie Mercury, it was a Parsi. These guys, the Parsis, were Zoroastrians who a lot of them moved from Iran into India.
What do they believe?
They were the first monotheistic, or one of the first monotheistic religions. And their whole thing was you say good thoughts, good words, good deeds. So it's pretty simple. And to this day, a lot of Iranians...
And no gays.
and no gays, and women can't vote.
But other than that, good thoughts. Good.
Other than that, it's all good. No, but
I like
to
it.
this day, a lot of Iranians who are because Iranians hate the Islamic Republic of Iran because that government is very oppressive. So inside and outside of Iran, you'll see some people wearing this symbol. It looks like a Phoenician or like this bird, and that's called the Faravar, which is an indication of their loyalty more so to Zoroastrianism than to Islam. So there's a lot of Iranians who hate Islam because they go, the Muslims ruined our country, like, by becoming the Islamic Republic of Iran. So it's a complicated relationship.
It's similar to my fuck Trump shirt.
It's similar, exactly. That's what it is. But going back to what you were talking about with your neighbors and how you de-escalated. And
the lawn war. Yeah. What are you?
The lawn war. You took the sign off. He took the sign off. Interestingly enough, so I have not toured since the end of February.
Yeah.
And we had this date on the books in Arizona for this weekend. And I was hesitant to come as the numbers were starting to rise for Corona. And talking to the club, and the club has kind of, they've limited capacity. So the number of people that are going to be there are less than normal. And also they have some precautions. They take their temperatures, people wearing masks, et cetera, so whatever. So I was a little worried coming to Arizona and talking about Trump at all, because I thought, oh my God, I live in California. I've done a couple of outdoor shows in California.
Just to be clear, I'm talking to Maz while he is in Arizona at his hotel where he's performing at the Tempe Improv. Unfortunately, this won't post till Monday, so those shows will be over. But go ahead.
So we'll know by then if my theory is right or wrong. But last night was the first night back in what I considered could be a volatile place. Because what happened is, we both know Trump supporters lost their goddamn minds, right? I mean, it's like, I have friends that became QAnon types and believe in.
I want to hear about them.
They believe in this stuff, and it's nuts. And everything you say, they would come back with something else, right? Coronavirus. Well, he did this. Okay, Black Lives Matter. Well, he's doing this. He's doing better, more for. He had an answer for everything. Now that this election is over, and there was the accusations of voter fraud at the beginning, and they're starting to see the light. I think at least the ones that were not fully cuckoo and have a modicum of intelligence are starting to pull back and go, okay, we lost. Now, maybe they'll take that loss as we lost, but there was cheating, or we lost, but he'll come back in 2024. But last night, getting into the Trump material, I was just a little wary. And what I did was, I said, as I got into it, I said, guys, let's not get upset about this. I'm about to talk about Trump. Just don't take it personally. He's not your grandfather. He's not your grandmother. So let's all just relax. Here's a couple jokes. We're going to move on. And it was interesting enough. Nobody yelled anything, because during when he was in the heat of his presidency, they would yell shit.
Oh, yeah. I remember
last night, at least, nothing yelled.
Well, my big question, I have a strong theory on how to effectively do political material in the Trump era. And that theory is save it for the end. Because I win him over. And if I'm going to lose them, I want to lose them at the end. I like a seasoned comedian almost likes, I'll never forget Greg Fitzsimmons teaching me this. A seasoned comedian almost likes losing an audience for the challenge of winning them back. I understand that, but it was like, it was too exhausting to me. I was like, it's a different kind of thing. And so my question to you is, when did you do it? And the other thing is, don't they kind of know you're a pretty well-known guy? But even if they didn't know who you are, your name is Maz Jobrani. Doesn't an audience walk into a comedy club knowing this guy's probably not a Trump guy?
Let me break a couple things down for you. First of all, I also was doing it towards the end. So this has been my evolution with Trump material.
Yeah.
Early on, I thought, you know what? It's our job as comedians to hold his feet to the flames and continue to talk about it and lean in. So I started leaning in. And part of it was I also did a little bit of like you just did about like how your father was affected by the beer dying and he got in the subconscious. Well, Trump reminded me a little bit of my dad, and that my dad was a businessman, and my dad also would think he could do anything. And now my dad wasn't as much of a sociopath in that he wasn't like, he actually was very generous and helpful to people. But businessman wise, I saw similarities. So I thought to myself, maybe beyond just not liking this guy, what he stands for, there's something innate, and I got to go for him. So I started going for him early on, in my mind at least. And I was at the Hollywood Improv doing jokes. Some guy yelled back. I yelled back. The next thing you know, we're arguing. I'm trying to have a logical argument with this guy from the stage. And some of the people in the audience go, dude, what's going on? What happened to the show? And I was like, and I realized I lost myself. So I said to myself, the next time this happens, I'm going to Tai Chi it. I'm going to let the person talk and just calm it down. And because of that, I called my tour at that point, Peaceful Warrior. In my mind, I'm going to be the warrior, but peaceful. And it happened 2 times. One time in Irvine, one guy, I was so funny at the Irvine Improv. So for those people that don't know, Orange County, California is very conservative. And I have a good following in the Middle Eastern community. And what's interesting is a lot of Iranians started to like Trump. And the reason they started to like Trump was because because Trump has said that he is going to get rid of the Islamic Republic of Iran or get rid of the mullahs, because Obama obviously had the Iran deal. And a lot of Iranians in the diaspora didn't like the Iran deal because they're saying, you're doing a deal with these guys. But then Trump comes in and goes, I'm going to get a better deal. And they see past that and they see, he's going to get rid of them, which the truth is, I actually had a guy at my soccer. I was playing soccer. This one Persian guy comes up and goes, Maz, buddy, I love you, but stop making fun of Trump. I go, why? He goes, he's going to get rid of the mullahs. I go, how? He goes, I don't know. He's just fucking crazy. And I'm like, that's not a good strategy. Fucking crazy is not a strategy. You need a strategy. So all of this to say, sorry, I'm talking so much, Pete, and I see taking notes, but I'm going to get to the point of it is I was in Irvine and I see this guy. Irvine's a 400 seat room towards the back. I can see towards the back. I see this guy walking left, right, like everyone's seated. He's marching back and forth, and I'm kind of seeing it. I'm like, is he trying to go to the bathroom? Is there a fire? What's going on? And then all of a sudden he goes towards the exit and he starts going, fuck you, Maz. Fuck you. You made fun of our president. And I'm like, what? And the crowd starts going, shut up, boo. And that's when I pulled out my Tai Chi. I was like, no, stop booing him. I go, sir, thank you so much for expressing your opinion. What a beautiful country. And I just went on and on and on. And that just got him even more pissed. You just shut up. It's not a beautiful country.
Oh.
You know?
Oh, really? He was like the barbecue beer freedom guy from the...
Yes. But I learned, it was such a great lesson because I just stayed in the moment. Yeah. I let him talk and I go, what a great country. And I said, this is the beauty. We can do this. We can talk about this. And so after that, I had a similar experience. I saved it for the end. I had a similar experience at Flappers in Burbank. And that clip is actually on YouTube. If you
really?
If you put Maz Jobrani, Trump heckler, you see the clip because they happen to be filming it. That some of these clubs film every set. They filmed it, and I just like laugh at this lady, and she keeps screaming, and she's like, and this was a white woman. She goes, "I, as a woman, I'm offended," and I was like, "That's beautiful." I go, "That's awesome. You can be offended in this country." So I just totally bring it down, and it's just funny to like take these people yelling at you and just go, "Isn't it a great country we live in that you can yell like that? That's fantastic." So that's how I was dealing with it before. But now I've learned I go into it by giving them a little caveat. Like even today, yesterday, and I don't know how the rest of the weekend is going to go, but yesterday I started by saying, look, you can have different opinions. And I go, my own mother likes Trump. And this is true. My own mother does like Trump.
Oh, wow.
I go, I go, as a matter of fact, my mom, she doesn't vote. So I didn't know she liked Trump. So I went to her and said, Mom, you need to vote. It's your right as an American. You need to vote. It's important. And she goes, okay, I'll vote for Trump. I said, Mom, what's even more important is to not vote. As an American, you have a choice. So you shouldn't vote. Yeah.
Yes. Well, where does she live?
She what?
She's
in LA.
In LA.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Yeah, didn't matter.
Always matters. The down ballot matters, and so go vote.
It does.
Dude, when you said, I know I'm talking a lot, you're taking notes, because when I've learned I try not to interrupt somebody, and that's always been my weakness. And so now I learned years ago, just write down a couple words so you can go back and maybe reference or ask them that question.
Sorry to interrupt you real quickly, but I love when you interrupt, and I love the conversations we have. However, with Zoom, with this piece of shit technology, it becomes really hard because then like you lose certain things. But when you're in the same room, it's a lot more fun.
No doubt about it. But have you ever been in a Zoom chat like we are in this one? And I've decided that our connection technically is pretty good. Like it's actually really good. I feel like there's no problem so far. I'm sure just because I said that, I'll probably freeze.
No, I had a few little connection problems. Going back. Listen, I loved coming into the studio with you because again, you and I think are on the same wavelength when it comes to comedy, because you just talked about how you were trying not to interrupt people. The one time that I learned, this is what I've learned. I interrupt my wife a lot and she hates it.
Oh yeah.
And the reason is because she'll say, for example, so what we need to do is those lights that you started putting up, you need to take those. And I go, okay, I got you. Great. And she goes, I didn't finish. And I'm like, but I know where you're, and she's like, so I've learned now, Pete, I go out of my way as she's going through. I'm like, 10 minutes ago, I knew what you were saying, but I'm going to be
smart. It's so smart because what you're doing is condescending when you interrupt them. And I said them, the women. But my wife it's been our biggest issue, and it's her biggest issue with me, that I am disrespectful or condescending in kind of not listening to her, not hearing her. And the other thing, to take it to the next, I just learned this 2 years ago, that this is definitely a gender thing, I think, and a male thing, is that I realized 2 years ago, my wife just needs to be able to complain. She doesn't need me to even respond, but men want to fix it. And the best advice, and this wasn't advice, this is, my wife finally just letting me have it. She goes, I can't talk to you. I can't talk to you. I can't. And she wasn't communicating effectively enough to say, I just need to vent. You don't need to say anything. I just want someone to hear this, and I don't want you to judge it. I don't want you to solve it. I just want to get it off my chest. We're sitting here in the kitchen. You don't need to get out all your tools and your fucking poems and your positivity and your advice and tell me how to handle this.
My buddy was at a gym one time, and he's a single dude, and he said he ran into Denzel Washington. And they got to talking. And my friend's a single guy, and he asked him advice. He goes, what's your advice to for women? Like, how is it that, because my buddy also would like to have a wife, but he hasn't, he just hasn't found the right person. And Denzel goes, sometimes when they say something and they give you a problem or something, you just got to calmly just turn to them and go, how can I help? How can I help? And that's it. Like, don't come in with, well, did you try exactly what you just said. Don't give them the solution. Just say, how can I, and at least give them the freedom to go, just listen. Okay, great. I got you. That's good. I'll be right here.
It's the same thing with parenting, by the way, too, which is in terms of your response. We want to solve their problems. We want to give them advice, especially our kids. But I learned early on as a parent, after reading the most important parenting book, I read a lot of parenting books, especially like raising girl type stuff. I read a book once called How to Raise Confident Girls. I read it on vacation. It was life-changing. But Dr. Chaim Ganat's book, Between Parent and Child, when the kid comes home and is complaining about any number of things from school that happen in school, instead of giving advice, instead of anything, just acknowledge what happened by saying, things like, oh, I'm so sorry that happened. That must have made you feel so mad or embarrassed or humiliated. I can't. Yeah, I've been there. That sucks. I'm sorry. Then the kid realizes, because they're kids and don't realize they're not alone. They're not the first person to experience this.
Yes.
And then the problem goes away, because the main problem is they feel like there's something wrong with them. Yeah. This is tragic. And it's like, oh no, that's normal. In a way, you're normalizing it. And then, and the other thing with my wife, the other really important thing that I've learned, because I love what you just said, how can I help? My best sentence, and it's the most authentic one I have, is, what does my support look like? Like, what does it look like? Am I saying something? Am I doing something? Am I not doing something? Is it implicit, explicit? What does my support, you said, what do you need from me? What does my support look like? Is another great marriage sentence.
I like it. And I like the thing with the kid as well, because I have just innately, I will find situations that I've gone through, that they're going through, just to say exactly what you just said. I've been through it. However, I do like to wax poetic with the kids.
Sure.
And my son, who's 12 now, he makes fun of me now, because he'll ask a question and I'll start elaborating. He goes, I just need the answer to that first question, Dad. I don't need
that. Is hilarious, and I totally relate, and we're similar that way. We've got a lot of wisdom that we want to share with our children and anybody who will listen. But the other thing I learned in that book, and I don't know if this is true, but it's kind of funny to think about, in Dr. Chaim Ganat's Between Parent and Child. Go buy it. Every parent should buy that book and take what works and leave what doesn't. There's no, manual for relationships or parenting, but there's this piece of advice. They say something based on some studies, whatever, psychological studies, which aren't perfect science. We want to get say to our kids, especially when we really want them to listen, hey, look at me when I'm talking to you. Look at me. That's the most common thing. I think it's a very male thing, but women, we all do it. Look at me. And he explains that if you want to get your point across, if you want to be heard by your child, which should be the primary goal, don't do that. Because that's intimidating as hell. And it just makes me laugh because it's like, stop, I don't want to look at you. Daddy's got angry eyes. Just tell me the thing you need to tell me. Can I look at the floor?
Well, I've also read, because just like you, I read a lot of parenting books. I read this thing that happens in sports where parents will stand on the sideline and yell instructions at their kids. And this one, I think he was a former New York Met. He'd gone and gotten his degree in psychology, and he'd done a study. And he said the number one thing kids say they don't want to hear is their parents, because they're not listening. They're in the middle of the game. They're not hearing your BS. And you think, like you just said, I've seen parents call their kid to the sideline. Hey, Pete, is your head in the game or not? And they're like, I just want to have fun, man. Like, just leave me alone.
My dad would yell from the sidelines, "You're not good enough. You're not my son." And he would point. He would point. And he would hold up a picture of me. Number 2. No, I never really got off the bench, and my dad, but my parents were definitely not that way. They were, in terms of that sports parent, but that is such a common thing. I'm so glad my daughters aren't in sports. How old are your kids now?
My son's 12. My daughter is 9. And it's interesting, too, going back a little bit as we're jumping all over the place, going back to my friends who became QAnon believers.
Oh, yeah. Tell me about it.
I honestly feel in 2020 that I lost some close friends.
Yeah.
And I feel
I'm sorry.
Like part of talking to your kids is because you go, who else do I have? I've lost my close friends. I've got, like you said, I've got my wife, and we're both complaining to each other about the politics of it. Thank God we're on the same wavelength there. But these friends of mine who I used to feel like, oh, I get a break from the family to go hang out with my friends, or even the comedy clubs. We used to be able to go to the comedy clubs and hang out.
Yep.
And the comedy clubs, it didn't matter who you ran into. They're comedians. You're going to get in a conversation. You're going to bitch about your life. All that all went away. So all of a sudden I'm going, who do I have to talk to? And that's part of, I think, why sometimes I'm waxing poetic, because I'm in the car with the kids. I'm like, oh, great. I get to have a conversation with somebody. But it was strange to lose these friends to this QAnon stuff.
Give me a specific what happened. Because there's a difference between losing a friend over politics, specifically over their support for Donald Trump, who's a cruel, horrible, terrible human being. Because you're like, how could you? I thought you were a decent guy. Like, that's a hard thing. Or if it's some political issue that they want to argue. But I feel like not all Trump supporters are crazy QAnon, and there's a spectrum. So I feel like that's different. What happened?
Yeah, so there's a group of guys, and one of the guys who's a Republican, and he probably believes in smaller government, the taxes, all that stuff. I've actually had pretty good conversations with the guy, even though we totally disagree on all the issues. I've had good conversations, and once in a while we do name calling and being like, "Don't you see it's hypocritical that you're saying that?" But in the end, I go, his feet are on the ground. These other friends, it was really strange. And I think part of it has to do with, again, going back to the Iranian community. These friends of mine I'm talking to you about are Iranian Americans.
Yeah.
And within the Iranian community, there's been a movement that became really pro-Trump, to the point where some of those Trump rallies that are happening in Beverly Hills have been organized by Iranian Americans.
Yikes.
So it started, things started picking up from, I think his support of, so there's a lot of Persian Jews. So his support of Israel and the fact that he moved the consulate to Jerusalem, that thing. Whereas also, by the way, somebody was pointing out that under Obama, there was a lot of aid still going to Israel. So it wasn't like Obama didn't like the Jews, but that's just, let's put it aside. But there's the support of Israel. But then there's also Iranian Muslims as well. So then his things of saying, I'm going to get rid of the mullahs. And then they start differentiating themselves. Like W. Kamau Bell did his United Shades of America, and he did it actually in New York near you.
Mm-hmm.
And he was talking to these Iranian dudes who came here in the late 70s, which is when I came, and we all fled a revolution in Iran to come to America. And Kamau asked them, he goes, he goes, well, what do you guys feel about these people coming in asking for political asylum? And all of them, well, one of them goes, well, if you come legally, we came legally. So if you come legally,
right,
you should be able to come in. And then he goes, well, seeking political asylum is legal. And then the guy goes, well, when we came, America didn't have as many enemies. Now America's got a lot of enemies. So they buy into the rhetoric of the Mexicans coming are drug dealers. The Muslims coming must be terrorists. So they bought into all that. So whatever it is, at some point, this movement, I think, started within the Iranian community. So a few of my friends kind of fell into it, and they tend to be well off. They're wealthy, they're doing well. And then they start criticizing a few things, and you go, huh. So for me, I started recognizing the clues. Like, I didn't realize, like, one of my friends, this guy, friend from college 20 something years ago, intelligent, sweet, just a great, great person. And it started with a conversation we had, if you remember, this is the longest year ever. In early 2020, we almost went to war with Iran, if you remember.
Yeah, I covered that. I interviewed 7 people in one day getting reactions from the assassination of General Soleimani. It was, by the way, go ahead.
So there you have it. So Soleimani, by the way, was a bad guy. So I didn't cry over him being killed. But but
that's not how.
I agree with you. That's a whole other argument to be had. But within my own community, like, because they come at me, they always, if I say like, oh, doing this was a bad thing, there's people on social will come up and they go, the mullahs, the regime is paying you, you're in their pockets. They accuse me of being you're a sellout. You're ashamed. I mean, so I have to always start every sentence with, the Islamic Republic, the government is bad. They're oppressive. Soleimani was a bad person. I get all the other stuff they talk about, like, that's not how you do things. Beyond that's not how you do things. More importantly, the other point I make to these people, I go, Soleimani was bad. I didn't cry over him getting killed, but I go, there was no plan. It was just, that's the problem. When you have Pompeo and you have these other hawks in the administration, even though I firmly believe Trump doesn't want to go to war, because I don't think he does. He'd been painted into the corner where we almost went to war. So I was having a conversation with this friend of mine who started going down that QAnon world. And I said to him, I'm worried. I said, a lot of Iranians are worried because a war might happen with Iran. And I go, if it's anything similar to what happened with Iraq, that means 500,000, 1 million innocent Iranians will die. And this friend of mine, he goes, well, the regime's been very oppressive and they've killed a lot of people. So if that many people got to die for them to go, then it's got to happen. And it was the first time where I go, wait a minute, you're sitting here in Beverly Hills telling me it's okay for young people in Iran to just get killed over a war. And then you're going to go vacation in Iran. What's the point? And that was one of the first points when I realized, oh, wow, that's a very extreme comment for him to make. But then once the pandemic hit is when the QAnon shit started coming back.
Go ahead.
Pandemic hits, he starts sending videos of, I don't know who, it's like Fran Drescher's husband or something. There's some Indian doctor who's supposed to, like, it always says like Stanford educated. And then this dude's like going, Dr. Fauci was, is a failure. He was a failure with AIDS. And now he's part of trying to capitalize on this. And so is Bill Gates. And then the 5G videos start coming. Then there's a lady, they sent me a video, Pete. I don't know if you've ever done this, like, because I was still trying to logically argue.
Yeah, no, I've done it.
Then there was that. Yeah, because then there was 2 or 3 of them in the chain. And one of them, like, I would be like, for example, I would send them something and go, guys, here's an article from The Atlantic. It was researched. This guy has been, these guys started their own coronavirus chart, and they're keeping track of the numbers, and it's going up, guys. Just read this. Tell me what you think. And then they'd be like, all right, Maz, I'll read that if you watch this video. I swear to God, they sent me this video. There's some Dutch lady. It's like a 5-part series. And the Dutch lady, she goes, I am a doctor from whatever, Holland. And then they all have credentials. And then there was some things that I used to be a Obama supporter. So they were all like,
yeah.
There was some things
perfectly executed.
Some things that made me go, I go, that's
Arsenio Hall bit.
Bro, this lady goes into Pizzagate and how the guy who owned the pizza store in DC is gay, and he's got gay art on his walls.
Yeah.
And here's some pictures from his Instagram, and it gets crazier and crazier.
So I feel like the problem with many of us, certainly me, I do this all the time, but I think I want to change it because it's not fun, is we say, how can you believe that? How can you support a person like that? The problem is we act like they're seeing the same thing we're seeing, and they're not. And more importantly, we're not, I think we're sitting here talking about, well, I want evidence for your argument. And you and I have a lot of complexities to the things that we say. We think about these things, we read about them, and we love to have thoughtful conversations and from learned, intelligent, intellectual experts on things. And I think that we take that for granted, that most people can't do that, don't want to do that. And more importantly, we don't understand the psychology. And that's what I'm trying to get a better handle on. How could you believe that? Why would you believe that? And an article I read recently, James Hamblin, again in The Atlantic, basically did some research on the history of diseases and how they affect people culturally. And there was this one line, and I see if I can find it, but basically is when diseases spread across the population, scammers rise and people fall for those scams. I think I might have found it. When we're sick or threatened by disease, we seem to be uniquely susceptible to scams. Nobody alive in any country has lived through a pandemic. And we already saw the beginnings of this with the anti-vax movement and with just people questioning all kinds of, pretty sound scientific consensus on anything from cancer to climate change. That was already happening. The virus has accelerated those theories and the fear. And so in the history of humankind, apparently, there's always been quacks that'll sell you shit. And there's always been a huge number of people who would buy it.
Well, there's a lot of stuff there. Frank Figliuzzi wrote an article I read, and he was mentioning that under the pandemic and the lockdown, a lot of people have a lot more time to go down these rabbit holes. That was an interesting thing, was getting these guys that in the past had been busy with their professional lives, sending me messages at like 2 p.m. or whatever. And I go, weren't you a doctor? Aren't you supposed to be operating? And I'm thinking I'm the only one without work, but they're without work. And so people were all like going deeper and deeper. And
aren't you the Secretary of State of the state of California? Why are you sending me this?
Dude, it's nuts. So a few things. One is obviously because back in the day, 3 networks controlled all the news we got. So at least we agreed on the facts. Now you've got 7 billion networks, basically, to this point where, even when I was on social media going, vote for Biden, I had these people sending me again, a lot of them Iranians, sending me things like he's a pedophile and sending a picture of him with his arms on the shoulder of that girl, which then you go to find out is like his granddaughter, and it's his son's funeral or what.
Joe Biden met my daughter, my wife and daughter, right after the 2016 election. My wife and daughter saw him in Nantucket, where we were for Thanksgiving, right after Trump won. It was devastating. And there's Joe Biden, that's still the vice president. And my wife basically stalked him into a clothing store and introduced real quick my daughter to him. And he, bent down, said hi to my daughter, and then said like something, "You're beautiful," whatever, and gave her a kiss on top of the head. And I remember her telling me that. I'm like, oh my God, that's so sweet. That's so, and I kind of was like, I absolutely wrote it off to old Irish man, like Italian, Irish, the very older men. They can be very physically affectionate. It's like very common in Arabs. It's a very common cultural thing. It's not weird. I was never weirded out by that, but he is the kind of guy who's physically affectionate. It wasn't weird to my daughter. She appreciated it. And
it's amazing.
But people look at it through it. Yeah.
Yeah, they tried to twist everything.
And when people said, "I'm not comfortable, you should stop touching people so much, you old man," he was like, "I'm sorry, I didn't realize that was not, okay, I won't anymore." Yeah, that was it. He's chopped.
So people, listen, people need answers. People are looking for, I took a class in college called the Sociology of Brainwashing. It was an amazing class. And it talked about how they would reel people into these cults.
Sure.
And after the election, I was reading this thread on Twitter there was a lady who said that she, at a young age, ran away from home and joined a cult. And she said the cult leader was in my head and had my bank account number, and I was giving him all my money, and I would just go with it. And that's kind of what happened with this Trumpism, because if you go back to Trump before he announced, he was kind of a joke. A lot of people would, that's the apprentice guy.
Dude, I'm on CNN. I'm on CNN on the records laughing on TV about Donald Trump ever being president. I got to find that clip and dig it up. I look like such an asshole.
So that's where he was. Then he comes in and he starts saying some crazy shit. And again, a lot of people, even if there were people that believed it, it was a minority that was admitting it. Yeah. And a minority actually thought that he was a good leader that was going to do anything. But he is a cult leader because he,
no doubt,
like cult leaders who go, I am your solution. He said that at the RNC, I am the answer. And then he never admits any flaw, never. So everything. So if after a while, if you start going, oh yeah, you know what? He's right. The media is really going after him with this Russia thing. You know what? He's right. Why are they covering him like that? You know what? He's totally right. The Muslim ban, those countries could send terrorists. So it's good that we're doing that. So as they start to fall deeper and deeper into it, I think that something happens where it gives you answers. People need cults because people join cults. People join religion.
Solidarity. It gives you a solidarity too. Like, I'm not alone in thinking these things about these people, but the other thing is, like, I feel like you don't need a college level course to question a certain type of leader. And this is what I mean. Like, I will sometimes say this to Trump supporters, and I can't even think of anybody's response at the moment, but I'll be like, listen, hold on a second. Look at that guy. Look at him. He's fucking crazy looking. You've never seen anybody that does that with their hair or colors their skin like that. You don't know any men that do that. None. Not unless they're performing, in some way, doing an alternative show of some, like,
in a kabuki
theater. Like, what are you doing? Why would you, if you saw that, if that man walked out and to sell you a car, you'd be like, I don't trust this guy. He's got makeup on, and he's done something with his hair. He's clearly had some surgeries, and it's just his appearance as a man. But then when you start thinking about, and you do look at history and do start thinking about college level courses, you think about Mussolini, you think about Saddam, you think about Mao, Stalin. They all had these, Hitler, obviously, they had the military uniforms and the medals and the way that they talked and standing on the balcony and all that. He's such a hack, Donald Trump. It's been done.
Well, it's funny that you say when you look at the hair. Well, it's funny you say when you look at the hair because that's why kids, I think, see it. Kids see it very clearly. And I was listening
to that's a great point.
Yeah, because I was listening to the Daily on the podcast, and they were talking to suburban women who had voted for Trump who were now going to vote for Biden. And one lady, and this is in Ohio, and the lady goes, one of the big turning points for me was when I was watching TV with my 9-year-old and Trump took his mask off. And my 9-year-old goes, why do I have to wear a mask and he doesn't? And she goes, I realized, oh my God, you're right. Like, why he says, they're saying one thing, he's doing. And it's amazing that her 9-year-old saw it and she didn't see it. Kids see it. Kids see the hypocrisy in this guy. Kids see the fact that this guy is lying. He's cheating. He's a grifter. They see it.
Yeah, because he doesn't act or look normal. And I'm not saying that looking or acting normal is something we should do. But as a leader and as an influencer even of thought, that's not a healthy. I'm trying to get away from the word normal because not that that's a good thing. But kids, I see your point. It's a great point about kids recognizing. It's like, I see dead people. I see the ghosts. The adults can't see them.
Yeah. And so what people want is the people that come to you with like, well, he did this for taxes, he created jobs, and he stopped the China virus he stopped Chinese from coming. Those are all firm answers, and they're simple, Pete. That's the thing. The coronavirus is not simple. It's not just putting a ban on one country and, oh, we're done. And by the way, even your ban has a major leak, by the way. But it's complicated. And when I talk to these guys, I go, Trump wasn't responsible for the coronavirus, but he was responsible for the reaction to it and for downplaying it and all that other stuff. So, and it's not, and the answer isn't simple. We're going to have a vaccine, but some people aren't going to take it. So the answer is not simple, but when you get a guy like that who goes, the answers are simple. I'll have a deal with Kim Jong-un in 1 minute. Don't worry, I got the Iranian thing. I'm going to take care of that.
Yeah.
I will take care of that. The wall, I'm going to build the wall. He has the goddamn answer for everything, but nothing has a plan.
I alone can do it.
I alone can do it.
Who says that? He actually, and just to be clear, in case you didn't know, Trump actually said that, and so have other authoritarians throughout history. I've been reading a lot of authoritarian history, as many people have been, and like that's a common phrase. But Maz, can you imagine me and you are just hanging out, and I said that in a serious way, or anybody you know said I am the only person who could possibly complete this task?
Exactly the point.
You'd be like, I'm not be friends with you, you egotistical prick.
But that makes me also go, I don't trust this guy. If anybody says I'm the guy, I go, I don't trust this guy.
Yeah. I'm the only guy who can fix your car in 3 states.
Listen, when I've met with like agents or publicists, the ones that I trust the most are the ones who go, look, now you should probably go meet some other people. Yeah. I might not be the right person for you, but go meet, figure it out, see what you think. And then if it still works, like, let's come back and let's talk. The person who goes like, the person who does the hard sell and goes, I'm going to make you a star. I go, this motherfucker's lying. I go, come on.
Well, it's also a question, though, about just like a judgment of character. How do people not see a con artist? I'm really, my dad is 76. He's didn't go to college. He's white. He's Italian and Lebanese. And he's definitely in a category of Americans who would be Trump supporters. Like 99% of that guy is a Trump supporter. But I think part of the difference with my dad is, well, number one, he's got us just, constantly, punishing him with data and arguments. And he's an open-minded person. He doesn't, he'll listen. So that's an important attribute. But number two, he sold insurance his whole career. He's a ski instructor. He's a sales guy. Yeah. And Trump, my dad sees that guy from the very beginning, from the Apprentice days, and my dad be like, "That guy is a con artist.
Yep,
he'll sell you anything, and he'll steal the world right out from under you." My dad knew that years ago. He recognized it, and I'm not. I don't think that makes my dad special necessarily. How do you not recognize that this guy is going to fuck you? And the main way to do that is just, this guy's got a record of not paying people and screwing people over in the private sector.
Yeah, I did phone banking. So in the 2016 election, I donated to Hillary, and obviously that didn't go anywhere. But then in 2020, I got to go do more. So I phone banked, I volunteered, I went to Nevada and was a poll watcher. I did a lot of stuff. And in the phone banking, my favorite was when I would get old people I would say, "You plan on voting for Biden?" And they go, "Hell yeah, I'm voting for Biden." And go, this guy's a con artist. One guy said, "I'm convinced if he wins again, he's going to sell our country in the next 4 years." So I love seeing old people, like you said, older people who you think might fall into that category, who go, "This guy is a con. He's a piece of shit." I'm like, yes, that's always good. So yeah, man, it's been a crazy roller coaster ride with this guy, and we're still not done with him. But these things exist. Like I watched a documentary on Pepe the Frog. You know Pepe the Frog? Have you heard of this guy?
I'm familiar with the entomology of his where he kind of came from, but I forget it. It's a white nationalist, white supremacist meme.
Yeah, so before it became that, Pepe the Frog, actually Mark Maron had the guy on his show. It was some like hippy-dippy cartoonist in San Francisco in the aughts created Pepe the Frog, and he was just this like chill frog just hanging out in his comic book world. And it got hijacked by the right wing, and they started creating these memes with Pepe the Frog. And he said it reached its culmination when they did a Donald Trump Pepe the Frog, and he retweeted it. And so then he goes out to try and reclaim his creation, because the guy's like, I'm not a right-wing person. I'm a hippy-dippy dude. I'm very liberal. And it's interesting because he goes into these worlds of literally, they in the documentary, they find a guy who's in his early 20s living in his mother's basement on one of these chat rooms. And you realize there's a lot of these people there in this country right now and in the world, in their basements, just going off. And they're on your, they used to be on Reddit, but now they're on 8chan, and now they're on the QAnon worlds. And these people are there. And it's kind of, they're similar to, how we used to say these people that would join Al Qaeda or ISIS were disenfranchised young people that had nowhere to go, they had no purpose. Similarly, this thing's happening in America on computers, and then these guys are going off and they're buying weapons, and then they're also deifying anyone who does like mass shootings. It showed in this documentary there was a guy who went to near UC Santa Barbara and shot a bunch of people, and it was atrocious. And yet on these chat rooms with these young guys living in their parents' basements, they were all, he was a hero to them. So all that to say, even if Trump goes away, this stuff exists, and I don't know how we battle it. I continue to hope and believe that if you just keep putting facts and truth out there, that it'll rise. I hope that friend of mine one day wakes up and goes, dude, I don't know what I was talking about with the 5G. That stuff was crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate your optimism. But let me ask you this. My daughter just texted me, and I'm way late to get her lunch, which is fine. Yeah. But I want to end in a kind of a positive note, but also a very personal question, which is, you and I think part of the reason why we've always been really good friends is because, as you said at the beginning, we have a kind of a similar station in life, a way of thinking, personality, really, curiosity. I think love of other people, respect of other people. And you're just a really kind, good, smart, hilarious guy. And we've hung out. We've met I've met your kids in Aspen and your wife, and we hung out and everything. But my question to you is like, how are you? I'm asking a lot of men who are in this category, who've got kids young like ours, married. How are you doing? How are you finding joy? Because we've been talking a lot about a lot of things to be worried about. There seems to be more things to worry about than ever before. And then there probably always was for men in their 40s and 50s. I want to have a conversation with men in their 40s and 50s, especially, about how they're finding joy and how they're dealing with their own anxiety. I've talked really openly about it, and it's been very helpful to people. And I really like to hear from others to learn. How are you finding joy? How are you dealing with all the concerns about the world? And then also just the normal concerns you would have had otherwise, just, aging and career and money and all of it.
Well, there's a positive and a negative on all of that. Like, first of all, as you know, with the work that we do, we just got grounded. It's all of a sudden like if we were the 757 Max, we got grounded. Like so all of a sudden your job goes away. So one thing that I was finding, to do, at least for work, but there's no income involved, but like doing your Instagram lives or getting a buddy on and doing an IG live or doing these podcasts and stuff. Those were nice and helpful because you get to talk, you get to go into, it's deeper detail. It's not like a 7-minute radio spot. You actually get to talk for a while. So that's been healthy and good. The other thing is I try to exercise. So I'll go on a run, and I'll listen to my podcast. That kind of stuff is good. I've definitely binge watched. There's a hell of a lot of stuff to watch, including old stuff. My kids, the 12-year-old and the 9-year-old, they just discovered 30 Rock on Hulu. We've been going through it. That's a hilarious show. We watched Ugly Betty. That was fantastic. So there's all that kind of stuff. I will say I've probably been drinking more than I should. Like, whereas before maybe I'd have like 2 nights a week of some wine. Now I'm having like 4 nights a week, especially in this past couple of weeks. It's been intense. So
I drank 8 nights last week.
Yeah, I don't go exactly 8 nights a week.
No, I'll interrupt you only to say I had a similar issue. It wasn't terrible. By the way, I'm trying to write a bit about how the phrase I've got a problem with drinking can be heard any number of ways, from, I think it makes me sleepy and I don't get my work done, which has been my issue, to I hit my wife with a broken glass. Like, there's a wide range of drinking, but I just interrupted to say I stopped drinking for October, and I learned a lot. I've never done that. It was really interesting, but go ahead.
I should do a month. I haven't done a month. I've done like a couple.
I didn't
weeks,
stop smoking weed.
But okay, well there you go.
Yeah. So.
But no, I again, I don't do blackout drunk or anything. But you know, you end up drinking a little more than you should. But again, you know, sometimes you go, hey, the weather's nice and I'm stressed out.
Sure.
And I need to drink. So, but really, it's like it's been some of that stuff, and then I end up like falling into the moments. So my daughter, look, your kids are, if you follow their joy, you will, I think you find moments where you're laughing or having a good time that was totally unexpected. So the other day, my daughter, like, she's got this dance game on the computer, Just Dance. She goes, "You want to do Just Dance with me?" And I was like, "Sure." Truth is, the song ended up being a little long. I was tired, winded by the end, but it was fun to do that. And I'm thinking to myself, this is good. This is bonding with my daughter. I had a good time. We ended up getting a puppy. We got a dog. So that's been walking the dog and hanging out with the dog has been great. Things that ground you are your kids, are animals, and then good conversations with friends that you can talk to. You know, those things I think help me a lot. They help refocus me.
Well, dude, it is so great catching up with you, and I love that answer, by the way. I think a lot of people will take something from that. Back to School is your podcast, posts every week. Follow him on Twitter. I plug dates. You're doing one date that you had in the books in Arizona this weekend, and that'll be over. I look forward to hearing about that, how it goes. What else can I plug? Anything else?
People can watch my special on Netflix. It's called Immigrant. And the other thing I will tell people to do that I've been doing is housework. I keep telling people, I go, under the pandemic, I've become like the handyman. I'm the tech support. I'm the dog walker. I'm the dishwasher. I do it all. And sometimes it's meditative.
Oh, yeah. Oh, hell yeah.
Meditative.
Dude, have you gotten into gardening yet?
Not into the gardening as much. I've watered the plants, but I probably will end up there soon. I just did some very basic electrical thing.
Oh, that's impressive.
I'm kind of proud of myself.
That's very, when I fix things, I go on social media and tell people. I just put a new faucet in my daughter's bathroom, and it works.
Doesn't it feel great?
Oh, hell yeah.
Doesn't it feel great?
Oh, yeah. It's the only thing, I just wish more people cared.
Yeah, nobody cares.
Nobody seems to. Maz Jobrani, everybody. So great to catch up with you, buddy. Thank you so much.
Right back at you, Pete Dominic. Be well. And I love reading about your adventures on social media. Let me know the next time you fix something at the house. I will give you a like.
I will. I'll literally send you a video. Thanks, buddy.
Take care, buddy.
All right, there goes Maz Jobrani, at Maz Jobrani on Twitter, and that's his website. I found that clip he was talking about from the Comedy Club show he was doing, where a lady just clearly hammered just started yelling out, and it's about 3.5 minutes. It's definitely cringy, but then very funny, and I don't know. I just thought I'd include it here on the end. If you don't want to listen to it, that's up to you, but I think it's worth it. And he's such a great guy. Maz is such a well-intentioned, thoughtful, good guy, and you can tell that in this clip as he's trying to plead with this crazy lady. This is, I think, from a couple of years ago. It's got to be now, performing at Flappers Comedy Club. And here's Maz with a crazy lady. This is what we have to deal with in comedy clubs now. I mean, at least when there were comedy clubs.
What's that? As a woman.
I take offense.
Okay.
To what you just did, because as a woman,
okay,
I have a very different opinion than
I appreciate you. Thank you very much.
A legal.
You're legal what? Paralegal?
America.
A what? I'm a legal immigrant too. Congratulations. Fantastic.
I'm glad you're a legal immigrant too. And
Namaste. However, Russell is not legal. It's okay. Calm down. I love you. Thank you. Okay. Okay, I hear you. That's fine. That's okay. Relax, guys. Relax. It's okay. Listen, that's fine. That's my whole point. We can talk about it. That's fine. Send me a tweet or something, or a Facebook message. We'll have a conversation. I'm serious. What's that?
Back at you.
Back at me. Thank you. God bless you. Thank you. I love you.
I take you to the same grade grade level.
Yes.
I totally enjoyed you
Please.
until you chose
Okay.
to attack Trump.
That's what I just was talking about. Oh, come on, relax. Please, calm down. Calm down. You guys, relax. You know, everybody, relax. Listen, just calm down. It's almost done. I only have like 2 more Trump jokes, and then we'll be done. I swear to God. I swear to God. I'm being honest. I swear. No, listen. I swear to God. Listen, I swear. You don't have, it's up to you. You don't have to stay. You don't have to stay. Okay. You went over that already. So they have a couch. I'm going to talk. Go ahead. You talk. I am a legal person sitting on the couch. I'm fine. Okay. Namaste. Relax.
There is a reason. You need to immigrate legally.
I've immigrated legally. What are you talking about? Okay, listen. They're going to kick you out now. Look, the guy's going to kick you out. He's going to ask you to leave. I'm trying to let you stay. I'm trying to let you stay here legally. He's trying to kick you out. This is like I don't know. I swear to God, I'm trying to let you stay. This is like the immigration. INS just showed up. Consider me your immigration lawyer. Can I defend her and let her stay legally? I don't know. That's what I mentioned. I don't. The whole point was, I'm telling you, listen, if you don't have to stay, I swear to God, you can have your opinion, I have mine, I still love you. You can stay if you want. If you don't want, you can leave. I'm fine with that, and I appreciate you, okay? But I got a couple more Trump jokes. I'm not joking. I actually do. I'm serious. So I got to do it. I got to do my jokes. I'm serious. So I'll let you choose. If you don't like it, that's fine. Just say, I got to go. I got to do it. It's my jokes. It's my show. I have to do it. Listen, but no, I don't want...
All right, the clip ends there. But anyway, I love Maz Jobrani, and I love that conversation. Hopefully you did as well. Thank you very much for listening today. I think that was a heartwarming episode and conversation between Maz and I always learn a lot when I talk to my comedian friends like that. And, of course, always great with Michael Cohen of the Boston Globe, at SpeechBoy71, at Maz Jobrani. I'm Pete Dominic, at Pete Dominic. I will see you on the Discord platform anytime, so you know you're not alone. Sign up to be a paid subscriber, and you can join us there anytime, as well as the Zoom Hangouts. And I will talk to you there. I love you. You're not alone. Bye-bye.